And Mark, we were just talking about Joe Milton III. And so I think we just have to it feels like the elephant in the room coming off of the game last night. What's your evaluation of what he was able to do? And thank you for joining us. What's your evaluation of what he was able to do against the 3s and 4s on maybe the worst team in the NFL, and anything that you would take away from that in a smart beat writer fashion?
Well, I'd say he made the most out of his opportunity and made what was otherwise a horrible night of football watchable. I was really grateful that he came in because at that point, guys, it was rough. I was like, oh man, you get all excited for the preseason. Football's almost back, and then you watch it and you remember oh yeah, preseason football stinks. It's not that fun. But what is fun is when these under the radar players sort of pop off, and that's what Joe did. And you're right, it really deserves context. He played 2 drives against 4th team defense of the worst team in the NFL. And, he had some fun out there. I think I'll say this, he surprised me. He has an absolute cannon for an arm that's been well reported, and that's what we've seen in training camp. But he's really struggled in camp on these shorter throws. So every time he hit Terrell Jennings with a pass, hey, Joe Milton showed some touch because he hadn't been. So my evaluation of Joe Milton hasn't really changed. He's a 24-year-old rookie. He has an awesome arm. He's an awesome person. People really like him. He's kind of a showman, but I think for the best case scenario is that, the Patriots are going to develop him into a quality backup for Drake Maye, who has much, much, much higher potential.
And Mark, speaking of Drake Maye, he only got 1 series last night. Two-parted question. Were you surprised he only got the 1 series, and what did you make of the action that he had in there?
Yeah, I'd say I was a little surprised, probably more disappointed. I think, like everyone else, I want to see Drake Maye against another team and, see some of these. We've seen these spurts from him in training camp, and it's just been, when it goes right, it's a lot of fun. I mean, he's 21 years old. He's super young. He's green. He needs to develop. So, I thought he performed, I'd say well, right? I mean, he was fine. He picked up a 3rd down conversion. The pass protection wasn't great on that last 3rd down, what was he, when he hit Kevin Harrison, the flat? It's like would I have loved to see Drake Maye go out and go 3 for 3 for 70 yards and a touchdown? Yeah, but I mean, for what we saw, it was fine. And I think really why they only played Drake Maye 1 series is it boils down to the offensive line. And the Patriots are having just a world of problems right now. We've seen it all summer. That's why even evaluating him in training camp is tough because he's working behind this 2nd-team offensive line that's bad. And there are just some plays that are getting blown up and the timing's off because a lot of times he was getting snapped to from Antonio Mafi, who was a guard, and the snaps were bad. It's been really just rough. And I think that's what last night's quarterback reps were all about. It was about, hey, Bailey Zappi, unfortunately, you're the sacrificial lamb. We're going to put you behind the bad offensive line, and we don't want to get Drake or, Jacoby Brissett hurt.
Mark, it seems like it feels in one sense very early to try to make a prediction about when Drake Maye will start in this season based off 1 preseason game, but they only have a joint practice and 2 more preseason games. So if you had to guess or speculate, where do you think you see him in the regular season coming off of the pace that they're putting him through in training camp and now preseason?
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, your time to develop a backup quarterback is in the summer because come the regular season, it's all about the game plan, and every practice will be focused on Jacoby Brissett getting ready for, the Cincinnati Bengals and Seattle Seahawks. So, really, Joe Milton and Drake Maye's time to develop is now. What I would love to see is not the last 4 games, but the last 5 games. And my rationale would be this. Get him in Week 13 at home against the Colts. But then you have the bye, so you give them sort of a week to digest what happened. And then on the backstretch, you have it's a tough backstretch. It's at Arizona, at Buffalo, and then home against the Chargers and again Buffalo. And who knows, Week 18, the Bills could be playing for nothing, and that could be an easy game. But I would love to see him in those last 5 games. I mean, I guess a lot of people, the popular answer is probably Week 15 coming out of the bye. But I say if you're going to do that, why not just give him the game before the bye and give him the bye week to sort of just go over what he did and what he can sort of glean from that.
Mark, I want to ask you about the young wide receivers. You saw Jalen Polk have a nice catch for a 1st down. Javen Baker had several nice reps in there, but still some things to work on. What did you make of the young receivers, specifically those 2, but if there's anyone else you want to mention as well?
Yeah, Jalen Polk says, as advertised, he's really reliable, and what I've seen from him in training camp is just consistency. He honestly reminds me of Jacoby Myers. He comes up in these bigger moments on 3rd down and in the red zone from both Jacoby Brissett and Drake Maye, and that's what we saw yesterday. It was, 2 catches, but one of them was a 6-yard catch on 3rd and 5. That's exactly what he's doing in camp. I really like him. I think he's solid. I don't know if that'll be a popular answer, but I think I look at Jalen Polk and I say, yeah, I could see him, if everything goes right, developing into a solid number 2 who's just that reliable third down guy. Javon Baker's a bit different. He's more of a home run hitting, deep ball threat who's batting in the low 200s. So you could kind of tell, he has to work on his route running, his intermediate catches. He's not as polished as Jalen Polk, but he does make more highlights because when he makes the catch, it's kind of a big one. So I like the 2 rookies. I think they have something going there. A little too early to say, though, if they're going to have a number 1 or a world beater. In terms of everyone else, Tyquan Thornton has been one of the most consistent receivers all offseason, including in pads, which has not been the case in the past. Jalen Reagor, to me, looks like, the team's starting kickoff returner, and he's also had a good camp. So saying all those names, Kayshon Boutte's been okay. I view him more as a practice squad guy. But because of what I've seen from the 5 players I just mentioned is why I'm not surprised what happened today with JuJu Smith-Schuster.
We're talking to Mark Daniels of MassLive, a Patriots beat writer. So, Mark, we got the news before we came on air today from Ian Rappaport that the Patriots cut JuJu Smith-Schuster. I'm curious about this. It is not a surprise to us who are following the team, and I'm sure not that big of a surprise to you either. But JuJu was brought in as kind of a de facto replacement for Jacoby Myers, who Bill Belichick let walk in free agency a couple years back. Do you have any sense of how much the current front office, be it Elliot Wolf or Matt Groh, were involved in the decision to let Jacoby Myers walk out the door and bring in JuJu Smith-Schuster?
Yeah, at the time, it was a Bill Belichick decision. The Patriots thought, I'll say this, Jacoby Myers thought he was close, and the Patriots just wouldn't. I think they were $1 million or two. I think they were $1 million off, of what the Raiders were offering him, and he wanted to return. And for me, it was all Bill Belichick. He's the button pusher, guys. When he was here, he was the de facto GM, and if Bill Belichick wanted Jacoby Myers would be here right now and not JuJu Smith-Schuster. And I'll say this, I know even last year with Bill running the show, the Patriots would have traded JuJu Smith-Schuster if they had any takers. And at the deadline and even this offseason, and no one was willing to take on the contract. So, yeah, at the end of the day, it was a Bill Belichick call. I don't want to be hyperbolic, but probably one of the worst decisions under Bill Belichick was to let Jacoby Myers go and sign JuJu Smith-Schuster. It just blew up in his face. It made things harder for Mac Jones in the offense. It was such a terrible, terrible move, especially because he was coming off a season where he had a knee injury that gave the Kansas City Chiefs pause about re-signing him. And really, that's what we've seen the last 2 years with a player who, once was very solid in the NFL, but just didn't have it anymore. Even this summer, it was so obvious. JuJu could not separate. He had issues with drops. He was struggling to separate against the 3rd and 4th team defense. So, no, I wasn't surprised at all.
And, Mark, this year they have a new offense. And with Alex Van Pelt, Jacoby Brissett, Drake Maye, just kind of the whole thing, what did you make of the offensive operation last night? They had some penalties early. They had some issues in the 3rd quarter, but we talked earlier about the fun with Joe Milton. Do you think they're kind of on the right track? Do they have a lot to work on? Where are you at on just the operation of their offense under Alex Van Pelt?
They have a lot to work on. I was talking to a source on the team this offseason who just sort of admitted to me that he thought the offensive development was going to continue through training camp and into the regular season, and that's definitely holding true right now. It is. It's a sloppy operation. Everything's new. It's a new offensive coordinator, a new offensive staff, a new playbook. Other than Jacoby Brissett, there are not a lot of guys who have a background in what Alex Van Pelt is trying to do, and I think we're sort of seeing that unfold. The hope is that things will be better come September, but I don't know. I'm not holding my breath on this season. I think this is more about this right now. They're in the early stages of a rebuild, and it's about developing their younger players and trying to keep the team afloat with Jacoby Brissett. And he's a great mentor for Drake Maye, but if you come out of this season with Drake being better than he was right now, and primed to start next year, this year is a win, even if you only win 4 games. So I just think they have a long way to go.
Last question for me, Mark. You said before that this is really the time of year for guys like Drake Maye and Joe Milton to develop and get their reps in before the season starts and you're doing install and game planning. How important do you think it is for Drake Maye to get more reps than we saw, to get more snaps than we saw in the one series that we saw last night in the next two preseason games?
It's so important. It really is. I mean, the joint practice coming up this week against the Eagles is important. And, the Pats have given him a ton of reps this camp, which is good. But, yeah, these last two preseason games, I want to see him. I mean, I'd love to see him go a half or, at the very least, like, give him 4 drives. It's just, you need to give him more game experience before he's about to stand on the sideline and back up Jacoby Brissett. So I think it's just vital to his development. Gerard Mayo keeps saying they have a very what do you keep saying? They have a developmental plan for Drake Maye in place, and I know for a fact from just my reporting this offseason that the Patriots do want to take their time and they want to do it right and they don't want to rush him. That's all good and well, but play him against the Eagles and play him against the Commanders. I think that would be the best thing. If I was running the show, I would play Drake Maye a half to almost the entire game, come that third preseason game.
Okay, he's Mark Daniels of MassLive. Mark, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.